At 48 years old, Tom Brady finally breaks his silence. The man millions call the greatest quarterback of all time lifts the curtain, revealing, for the first time, the 5 names he has hated the most throughout his legendary career. Not out of jealousy, not out of rivalry, but out of wounds that never truly healed. Yet the question remains, why now? Why would Brady risk exposing a truth he has carried for decades? A truth that could shatter the flawless image he built with 7 rings and countless records? According to insiders, this list has followed him like a shadow, through every touchdown, every betrayal, every celebration that never felt complete. And when you look at him today, calm, distant, almost cold, you sense that this confession is not an impulsive outburst, but a deliberate reckoning. And now, we come to his list. 5 names, 5 stories, deeper than anyone ever imagined. Number 5, Bill Belichick. The first name on Tom Brady's list is someone the public once believed was his greatest ally, Bill Belichick. For 2 decades, they were the most feared duo in football, the silent mastermind and the relentless competitor. But behind the trophies, insiders say their relationship was far from harmonious. It was a cold war, quiet, calculated, and inevitable. From the very beginning, Belichick treated Brady not as a partner, but as a replaceable piece, a system player, someone who could be swapped out the moment he showed weakness. Do your job, the mantra that defined the Patriots dynasty, was never a source of inspiration for Brady. It was a chain around his neck. Former teammates recall moments in meeting rooms when Belichick dismissed him, questioned him, humiliated him in front of rookies, not to break his ego, but to remind him that no one was bigger than the system. The fracture deepened after the Deflategate scandal. While Brady fought for his reputation, Belichick stood to the side, offering cold, calculated distance. He didn't defend him, not the way a coach should, one former staff member whispered years later. And it was in those months, those long, sleepless months, where Brady first began writing mental notes, a list of people he could no longer trust. Belichick's name was the one carved the deepest. The final blow came during Brady's last seasons in New England. Belichick refused to offer him the contract extension he had earned, treated him like a fading asset, not a legend. One insider recalled a conversation in which Belichick allegedly said, "He's already given me his best years. I won't pay for nostalgia." That sentence stayed with Brady like a scar. It wasn't about money. It was about respect. Respect he never received from the man who built a dynasty with him. The day Brady walked out of Foxborough for the last time, he didn't look back. And when he finally revealed the first name he truly hated, there was no hesitation, no bitterness in his voice, only a cold, quiet truth that had been waiting years to be spoken. Number 4, Eli Manning. If Bill Belichick was the cold shadow behind Brady's dynasty, then Eli Manning was the man who shattered his dreams in front of the world, twice. And for Tom Brady, those losses were not just defeats. They were open wounds that never fully closed. To the public, Eli was the quiet underdog, the calm face of the Giants. But for Brady, he became something else entirely, the person who stood between him and immortality. The first dagger came in 2008, in the most painful night of Brady's career, the night the Patriots' perfect season died. Insiders still remember Brady walking off the field, stunned, silent, unable to process how a 18-0 season collapsed in a matter of seconds. And at the center of that collapse was Eli. The escape, the helmet catch, the impossible drive. Years later, Brady would admit privately to teammates, "That loss changed me." But the story didn't end there. In 2012, it happened again, another Super Bowl, another heartbreak, another night where Eli Manning played the role of the executioner. This time, Brady wasn't shocked. He was furious. "How many times do I have to watch him ruin the ending?" he muttered in the locker room, according to one former Patriot. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't rivalry. It was something quieter and sharper, resentment. Because Eli Manning did something no other quarterback ever managed to do. He stole Brady's history. He took away perfection. He took away the one thing Brady wanted more than rings, records, or legacy: the right to say he once achieved the impossible. For years, Brady kept it buried. The smiles at public events, the polite handshakes, The interviews where he praised Eli's composure, all of it, as one insider whispered, was a mask he wore to hide the sting. And when Brady finally read out Eli Manning's name on the list, there was no hesitation, just a long breath and a look that said everything words couldn't. Number 3, Antonio Brown. If Eli Manning wounded Brady on the field, then Antonio Brown wounded him somewhere far more personal, in trust, loyalty, and dignity. And for Brady, that betrayal cut deeper than any Super Bowl loss ever could. Brady was the one who believed in Brown when no one else did. He was the one who pushed Tampa Bay to give Brown a chance. He was the one who opened his own home to him, hoping that discipline, structure, and trust would help the troubled receiver rebuild his career. But insiders say Brady misread everything. Because while Brady offered him stability, Brown saw an opportunity. He thought Brady needed him more than he needed Brady, one Buccaneers staff member recalled, and that belief would become the foundation of a disaster. The turning point came during the 2021 season, the now infamous moment when Antonio Brown ripped off his jersey and stormed half naked across the field, waving goodbye to the team in the middle of a game. Cameras captured chaos, fans were stunned, teammates were furious, but the one person who looked genuinely hurt was Tom Brady. After the game, Brady defended him publicly, urging compassion, urging people not to judge, but behind the scenes, insiders say Brady felt used and humiliated. He had vouched for Brown's character, risked his own reputation, and believed that loyalty would be reciprocated. It wasn't, because the betrayal wasn't over. Not long after leaving the Buccaneers, Antonio Brown turned on Brady, posting private conversations, mocking his marriage, and calling him selfish on social media. For Brady, that was the breaking point. The man he had sheltered exposed him. The man he had trusted weaponized that trust. He felt stabbed in the back, one close friend said, not because of football, because of friendship. And when Brady listed Antonio Brown as the third name he hated most, there was no anger in his voice. No bitterness, just disappointment, the kind that only comes from caring too much for someone who cared too little in return. Number 2, Roger Goodell. If Antonio Brown was a personal betrayal, then Roger Goodell was something far larger, the force that tried to break Tom Brady's legacy in front of the entire world. For Brady, the NFL commissioner was not simply an adversary. He was an institution, a symbol of power used unfairly, a man who turned a controversy into a public execution. Everything began with Deflategate, a scandal that, even today, remains one of the most polarizing stories in NFL history. But insiders insist that the drama had less to do with footballs and more to do with ego, politics, and control. Goodell wanted to make an example out of someone, one league official later confessed, and Brady was the biggest name he could sacrifice. The investigation stretched on for months, invasive, exhausting, relentless. League lawyers combed through Brady's private messages, scrutinized every detail of his career, and painted him as a cheater in headlines across the nation. To many, it felt like a witch hunt, and to Brady, it felt like betrayal from the very league he helped build. When Goodell officially suspended Brady for 4 games, the message was clear. No one, not even the greatest, is untouchable. Former Patriots players still remember seeing Brady in those days, quiet, withdrawn, focused in a way that felt almost dangerous. He wasn't angry, one teammate recalled. He was hurt, and he was determined. The suspension didn't break Brady. It ignited him. He returned with a fire the league had never seen, and in 2016, he delivered the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history, 28-3, a silent, ruthless reminder of what Goodell tried and failed to erase. But the wounds didn't fade. Behind closed doors, Brady believed the punishment had been personal, politically motivated, power-driven, unfair. And when Goodell handed him the Lombardi Trophy after that comeback, Brady's smile didn't reach his eyes. It was the coldest handshake I've ever seen, a reporter whispered afterward. Years later, when Brady read out Goodell's name on the list, he didn't explain. He didn't have to. The world already knew. Number 1, Nick Foles. Among all the names on Tom Brady's list, the rivals, the betrayers, the men who left scars on his career, none struck him with the same quiet, lingering bitterness as Nick Foles. Not because Foles was a villain, not because he humiliated Brady, but because he represented something Brady has always feared, a moment that slips out of your control no matter how great you are. Super Bowl LAI was supposed to be Brady's coronation, a chance to silence critics, to prove that age meant nothing, to reclaim glory with raw determination. He threw for over 500 yards, a Super Bowl record. He played one of the greatest games of his life, and yet he lost to Nick Foles, to a backup quarterback, to a man the world expected to collapse under pressure. But Foles never collapsed. He rose, and with him rose the heartbreak that Brady carried for years afterward. The moment that defined it all wasn't even a touchdown. It was the Philly special, a trick play so bold, so unexpected, so humiliating that it became the symbol of Brady's defeat. And while Foles celebrated with the confetti falling, Brady walked to the locker room alone, his face blank, eyes distant. Insiders remember that silence. Brady didn't speak for nearly an hour, one staffer recalled. He sat in his locker staring at the floor. That loss broke something in him. It wasn't resentment of Foles as a person. It was resentment of what Foles represented. A night where Brady did everything right and still lost. A night where history slipped through his fingers. A night where his greatness wasn't enough. Years later, when he finally read out the final name on his list, Brady paused longer than with any of the others. A deep breath, a small, tight smile, and then quietly, simply, number 1, Nick Foles. Not out of hatred, but out of the pain of a wound that never fully healed, a reminder that even legends have nights they wish they could erase. When Tom Brady finished naming the 5 men he had quietly resented throughout his career, the room fell into a silence that felt heavy, almost sacred. But there was still one last truth he had been holding, the twist that tied all 5 names together. Because for Brady, this list was never truly about hatred. It was about the moments that shaped him, broke him, and rebuilt him. A coach who never gave him the validation he deserved. A quarterback who stole perfection from his grasp. A friend who betrayed him when he least expected it. A commissioner who tried to erase his legacy. And a rival who delivered the one loss he still carries like a scar. Insiders say Brady didn't reveal this list to settle scores. He revealed it to finally release the weight he'd been carrying for more than 2 decades. He wanted people to understand what greatness costs, one close friend whispered. Not the trophies, the wounds. And as Brady looked back on the 5 stories he had avoided for most of his life, there was no anger in his voice, no bitterness, only a strange, quiet acceptance, the kind that comes when you stop running from the past. He leaned back, exhaled, and said something so soft it almost didn't register. Every one of them pushed me, hurt me, motivated me. Without them, I wouldn't be who I am. That is the paradox of greatness. Behind the records, the rings, the glory, there are shadows the public never sees, conflicts that never make headlines, moments of doubt that even legends can't outrun. And as Brady finally closed the chapter on these 5 names, it became clear. This wasn't a confession of hatred, it was a confession of humanity. Because in the end, Tom Brady's greatest battles were never played under stadium lights. They were the ones fought in silence behind closed doors, deep within the corners of a legacy the world thought it understood.